All right, so I have a quick lesson on writing absolute value functions. And if you take a look at the definition of an absolute value as a piecewise function, so you already graphed this before, right? But did you know that an absolute value is actually a piecewise? And the way I would write this using the piecewise definition, right? F of x is equal to the absolute value of x, is I would write like this. F of x is equal to positive x for x is greater than or equal to 0, and negative x for x is less than 0. And let's just quickly review, like, how do I graph a piecewise function? Well, the boundary is clearly at x is equal to 0, right? And if I want to graph the line y equals x for x is greater than or equal to 0, I would graph it over here. And normally the line y equals x is across the whole page, but I only want y is equal to x on this side, right? For x is greater than or equal to 0. How would I graph negative x? Well, negative x will look something like this, right? Y is equal to negative x, and that's the piecewise way of graphing an absolute value function. Of course, right, you already know how to graph this, right? The vertex is 0, 0, right? And you would just go, plot the vertex, go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, right? That's the quickest way to graph it. But just wanted to show you that the absolute value function can be expressed as a piecewise, okay? PW definition. Okay, so how is that going to help us in our homework? Well, before we move on, I need to give you the general form, right? This is the general form. So the general form, or the vertex form of your absolute value, I should say, let's call it vertex form, is given by this, right? F of x is equal to a, absolute value of x minus h plus k. And if I ask you to rewrite f as a piecewise function, how would I do that? Rewrite f as a piecewise function. Okay, so what I'm going to do is write f of x is equal to, little squiggly line, right? And the way I do this, right, is I drop the absolute value symbol. So I'm going to drop it and call it parentheses x minus h plus k. And here's the tricky part, okay? So this right here, whatever's on the inside, that's called the argument. I set the argument, right, based on my definition over here, right? I set it greater than or equal to 0 right here. So I'm going to set the argument, in this case, x minus h is greater than or equal to 0, okay? All right, so that's one part of this piecewise function, right? But there's also another part. And what's the other part? Well, again, I'm going to drop the absolute value symbol and put parentheses, okay? Now, notice I left a little space here, right? If you look at the definition of an absolute value using the piecewise definition, notice there's a negative here. And so, likewise, I also have to put a negative over here, okay? And then I have to set the argument x minus h, right? I have to set it less than 0. So I'm going to set it less than 0. And that is how you write a piecewise function of an absolute value function.